AI still needs a lot of supervision. A lot of the work that has to be done is to continue to monitor the performance of those agents to ensure that they're accurately doing the work that needs to be done. That trend is going to continue well into the future. I don't think the machines are going to take over and we'll find ourselves in the Matrix or the Terminator situation, at least not for the next couple of hundred years.
That's optimistic.
The companies who lead in customer experience also lead in business development and business growth and business sustainability. And so I'm very confident that this is a formula that is a winning formula. It's probably the winning formula for a business.
Whatever things are in their blind spot, you say, keep up in the pace of this competitive environment.
The common blind spot is actually around the customer and the impact on the customer.
Outside in.
Exactly, the outside in perspective.
How to overcome on those quickly to convert those bad experiences into good ones.
There are a lot of good tools out there today, AI-based, that can monitor customer interactions at every touch point much more easily than humans can.
Silence of the customer. You should be able to detect those signals also to reduce the churn, because 80% of the business is coming from 20% of existing customers.
I have a signature on my email. The last best experience a customer had somewhere becomes the expectation for the experience they want everywhere. My name is Michael Baum. For the past 30 plus years, I've been working with brands on ensuring customers get what they want so they keep coming back. My work focuses on uncovering and translating customer needs and wants, products, interactions, and communications. I help businesses to develop strategies, assess capabilities, and fill gaps so they can, as much as possible, deliver consistently easy and engaging experiences for customers and thereby grow their business. I am honored by the opportunity today and look forward to the conversation with Nav.
You are in the customer experience niche and you are touching the wire of AI where most people are scared of today. Do you think AI will replace humans one day to automate all customer handling by itself?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of conversation about that, and there are people who are afraid of it. I happen to be on the side that I think that AI is going to augment rather than replace. That isn't to say that some people's jobs will become the purview of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But in the main, the evolution of artificial intelligence is not unlike, for me, the evolution of the computer and the internet. And it becomes a tool that makes things easier in some respects. And accordingly, then, people will find other work to do. In the near term, AI still needs a lot of supervision. So even as I work with companies and help them introduce AI agents, a lot of the work that has to be done is to continue to monitor the performance of those agents to ensure that they're accurately doing the work that needs to be done. And as things evolve, as those tasks evolve based on more automation, people need to do that. And I think that trend is going to continue well into the future. I'm not a doomsdayer about AI at all. I don't think the machines are going to take over and we'll find ourselves in the Matrix or the Terminator situation, at least not for the next couple of hundred years.
That's optimistic. I second your thought. AI actually will not replace all jobs. It may replace and most likely will do the people who don't know how to use AI, because roles will get upgraded to be more efficient, to be more focused to the outcome, to the results, right? So in those areas, like AI will definitely take over the charge to handling the processes, data management, automation, repetition of the tasks, like robotic processes, automation. All these things and actually they are doing very efficiently today. So but there is still like emotional part of the element, right? So when there are human to human involvement starts, that's when um, that's when the real engagement needs to happen, and AI is not ready yet. And you said like a couple 100 years. uh, yeah, I mean, it may never happen in a way because humans are learning a lot faster as well, right?
Right.
So as like technology is growing, we are also adjusting ourselves. I mean, we are not staying same where we are today
Exactly.
intellectually, right? So we are also growing. So, and our efficiency is increasing. So again, yeah, I mean, it's a combination of both. When cloud system were getting introduced, uh, when Amazon introduced and into the commercial market, even people were scared. Large enterprises I worked with also got scared of, no, we cannot really send over data to outside of our prem or our own data centers. We want to have full control. There were a lot of resistance on the moving data from data centers to the cloud because of data security, privacy, and other operational aspects. But eventually, what we look at today is everything is on cloud. Hardly if people are not on cloud because of their inefficiency. I mean, they still want to do that, but they're not capable of doing it. That's why they're not on cloud. Similarly, with AI today, like if we create content, I mean, it's very small use cases, like on a daily lives, home thermostat is so intelligent these days. Wherever you go in the house, like your temperature gets moved along you, right? So I mean, it's a beautiful technology, but it needs governance, as you say.
Exactly. And the one thing that I think the AI can't do today, and probably won't be able to do for a very long time, if ever, is that creativity of innovating from a white space. The basis of AI is that it makes relationships with data and extrapolates on those relationships. So that's a finite set of creation that it can that it has capability for. So where there's a need for creativity where there is no data, that's still going to be the purview of humans. And I think that's where humans work will continue, even as AI gets more and more prevalent in the workplace. We'll always need humans to be in that space, to sort of be that vanguard.
You love that.
I heard a great analogy the other day, and I can't take credit for it, but it really resonated with me. In the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, as automatic appliances were being introduced into the household, the image that advertisers created was that the housewife was going to become this person of leisure because she now had a dishwasher that was automatic and a washing machine and all these other appliances that were going to do the work that she used to have to do. And what happened was that, yes, it freed her up from those tasks, but she found other tasks to do. And in fact, women then entered the workforce in a much greater numbers because they had the free time. It was no longer required that women stay at home and be the keepers of the house. And I think that the same is going to hold true as AI evolves. Humans are going to find other work to do, other ways to occupy and add value. So I don't worry about the replacement.
I think that's a good way to look at, for sure. So when you are talking to big companies, business leaders, when you look at transformation at scale, what do you think, like with all this technology shift and human involvement in that shift, in the transformation is involved, where is in a scale at a common level, like where do leaders miss the spot, where, or whatever things are in their blind spot, you say, like where they should pay attention to keep up in the pace of this competitive environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, my answer is that the common blind spot is actually around the customer and the impact on the customer.
Outside in.
Yeah, exactly. The outside in perspective. Generally, where transformation is concerned, the leadership tends to focus inward or on their stakeholders and stockholders and what they need to deliver there, and they sort of forget about the impact on the customer. One of the things that I advocate in the work that I do with these companies is to use the customer as the prioritization factor in helping to understand what needs to be done in priority order. And the focus should remain on the customer, because the customer is ultimately going to either deliver growth to the organization or loss to the organization. And so I find that the leadership tends to forget about the customer as they're going through transformation. They're worried about the culture. They're worried about the spend. They're worried about the internal development and progress. And they forget about, well, what's the impact on the customer? And are we sure we're doing the right thing for the customer? I say the right solution is to flip that and to look at what the customer is telling you about what they need, and use that as your mechanism for prioritizing where your transformations are made and when and how.
Yeah, starting with the end state, starting with the ideal customer persona, the customer who are doing marketing for you, who are funding your business. Start with them and then define all processes downstream.
Exactly.
And see the gaps and fix those. And like, while this transformation is happening, technology is changing, processes are changing, expectations are changing, even training requirements, culture is shifting too with all this, because with change, resistance come along.
Exactly.
Right.
And actually, it makes the whole recipe a lot easier, because you go to your customers and understand what outcomes are they looking for from you. And then from there, once you understand what those outcomes are, then you can look at, well, what enabling technology do I need to enable those outcomes? And now I have my roadmap for what I need to change in my organization. And now it's just a matter of going through the motions of understanding what my options are for that enabling technology, and then putting an implementation plan together. So it makes the whole effort a little bit easier. I would say a lot easier, a lot clearer, and then delivers immediate results. So as you begin to make those changes, because you started with the outcomes for customers, which are going to improve, ideally. I'm assuming when I say go to your customers to understand their outcomes, to make the experience for them better, because you've started to make that experience better, you're going to see immediate paybacks to that effort by better engagement, more engagement from customers, referrals. Your NPS scores are going to go up. Your CSAT scores are going to go up. You're going to get more sales. I mean, that's what's happened for companies that adopt that formula.
Good you mentioned. I was thinking in back of my mind about NPS to pick up. So you mentioned NPS goes high with customer satisfaction increases, and same goes with CSAT. How highly correlated these numbers are, these scores are really with customer emotional aspect or customers' true satisfaction to keep up with you, to give you more business or things like that. How confident are you that like these numbers relate directly to the customer engagement?
Oh, very confident. I mean, I think there's a huge body of experience and documentation that has verified that the better the experience you create for the customer, the better your business does. Customers react to those better experiences because it's easier to do business, so there's less friction. They trust you more.
Yeah, trust is a big thing.
And they stay with you more, because you're a known, easy quantity. And so, I mean, there's, at this point, there's about 15 years of evidence that the companies who lead in customer experience also lead in business development and business growth and business sustainability. And so I'm very confident that this is a formula that is a winning formula. It's probably the winning formula for a business.
And this is a culture shift to get to that point, because it's employees who make that experience work for customers, right? So it starts with employees. So what is your take about employee experience and training, enable people to manage your customers? It's been seen as like happy employees bring happy customers and keep them as well. Like customer churn reduces if your employee satisfaction is high, customer retention goes high, and even like revenue goes up as well. So let us talk about employee experience a little bit as well. Like, what is your take on enabling employees towards that focus?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It doesn't make sense to tell your employees that we're focused on the customer and then not focus on the employees. So, yeah, you want me to treat the customers really well, but you treat me like not well. No, that's not going to work. So it definitely is the formula that, I mean, it's a proven formula that you need in order to deliver a great customer experience. There has to be a great employee experience. Now, that doesn't mean that employees are going to be asked to do things they don't really want to do. That's just work, that's working for a living. But in general, to your point, empowering employees, giving them the latitude to make decisions about how to do their jobs is a great way to create a culture of a great employee experience. People take ownership in that situation. They take accountability. They are proactive when given the latitude to make some decisions about how they do their jobs. And then in iteration, they then deliver much better experiences to customers.
So, are you listening, business leaders? You want to treat your employees as your customers. That's the bottom line.
Exactly right. I would suggest that you start with going to customers to understand what their view of the ideal experience is. This is sort of my mantra. Get the ideal experience from customers and then translate their ideal into what your infrastructure can provide, using that as your blueprint, is to first take stock. Take a little time to understand why things work the way they do.
Changes have to be implemented. It's always tough. Change, I think, is the only constant,
Right.
and also the toughest thing to do internally.
A very considered part of making changes. And so if leadership decides that changes need to be made, the ideal is that they give some consideration how the change is going to be managed, both for those employees who are going to be managed out, but even more importantly, for those employees who are not leaving.
Let's, since we started with transformation, so when technology changes, there are more job positions open, and we hire new people to work on the new structure, right? What, from your experience, what is your take? Like, training existing people is easier for the benefit of company, or hiring new talent is better option? I mean, my perspective is like, it's always better to find talent or potential candidates for training internally first, then look outside. But what happens, like, when leadership changes, typically, like, restructuring starts, that goes down to layoffs, elimination of some roles, creating new roles, and then new strategy comes in, and then the culture starts to get reset. So what is your opinion on all this? Like, how such kind of situations should be handled from the top view?
I agree with you. In that I think it's always better to try to find the talent you need for new roles internally. It creates that experience, that great employee experience, that there's opportunity for employees, that they get the opportunity to broaden their talents, their skills, to develop themselves. I think it sends a great message that most people are interested in and can and resonate with, and therefore, um, creates a great experience for them. And unfortunately, what you described does happen, that new leadership comes in, and a lot of leaders, the ideal, I guess, to answer your question directly, I think the ideal situation for anybody coming into a new situation that exists is to first take stock, take a little time to understand why things work the way they do. And then, with that understanding, it's much easier then to orchestrate the changes that one feels are necessary, because you can provide the rationale based on, you're doing it this way, this other way seems to be a better way. And it's a way to generate more confluence around making the change, and it's therefore not as disruptive. Experience follows expectation, and so if you have changed my expectations dramatically, suddenly, by wholesale layoffs or firings because a new CEO comes in, that creates a bad experience. If you have begun to manage my expectations by helping me understand the changes that you feel as a leader are necessary in the organization, then you sort of set me up for understanding and expecting that may impact my life. Now, nobody likes to be laid off. Nobody likes to lose their job. That's a bad experience, no matter what. It's sort of, now we're talking about the degrees of bad experience, right? But more importantly, for the people who remain, it gives them some comfort to know and to feel secure, because you're managing expectations are being managed by being part of the rationale and by having a rationale for what's happening, rather than just a wholesale, I've come in, I'm new, I need to make my mark. I call it lifting my leg on this thing, and so I'm going to make the change. That's the way I think is the ideal way to do it. Doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, whenever changes and changes have to be implemented, it's always tough. Change, I think, is the only constant,
right?
And also the toughest thing to do internally. So, of course, with all this, we should create opportunities for existing staff. Also, sometimes some people are not doing the work they want to do, and in that disruption, new opportunities come up as well, which are more aligned to their skills. And we can train people with skills, but that talent that is coming along, like with loyalty, with the human nature, we cannot really train anybody with whatever emotional structure people are built with, right? We cannot change it. So that's the right time to do the strength and weakness analysis of the existing staff, right? And HR should spend time on it. Like, they should have the data ready for the new leadership. Like, okay, even if it is AI, which is now is the new thing in the company, but still, like, these are the top learners. That learner tag on few employees might really help boost their career in the new technology.
Yeah.
Right. Just because they don't know AI or how to use the new system doesn't mean like they're not capable of doing the new work. I mean, with little training and little facilitation and opportunity, I mean, they can do even better than what they have been doing in the past. So, I mean, it's just a little example. But my point is, we should not ignore existing staff when such situations arise in the company to reorg.
Exactly. I mean, what we're talking about here is managing change management. And that has to be a very considered part of making changes. And so if leadership decides that changes need to be made, the ideal is that they give some consideration, some deep consideration to how the change is going to be managed, both for those employees who are going to be managed out, but even more importantly, for those employees who are not leaving, to ensure that the trust and the security and the safety for those feelings for employees remains intact, and therefore the business can move forward. Because we all know, and we've got some great examples in the last 4 months of what's happened to organizations who have had wholesale changes in staffing, the Doge cuts I'm referring to, as well as other companies that have just wholesale made changes without managing the change and the paralysis that happens in those organizations as a result. And that paralysis takes a long time to thaw. Whereas if you spend a little time up front putting a plan together for how that change is going to be managed, that paralysis is minimized and the recovery from the paralysis is much quicker, and therefore the organization becomes much more productive, much more quickly, and so the organization can move forward.
That's right. And you might have heard that news as well. Like Spotify announced that like they're not going to hire people that the jobs that cannot be done with AI, right? So, and you might have also heard the news about Spotify. The CEO announced that they're not going to hire people for the jobs which can be done by AI, which is a great move and a big example for others also. Like we should really shift our mindset as an employer, hiring manager, as employee, from all perspective that now AI is going to take the center stage for everything.
I understand where it's coming from, and I agree with the principle. I think the practice is a little premature. And that's based solely on my understanding, right or wrong, of the maturity of AI. And so as an example, there's a lot of customer service, customer support that can be done by an agent, an AI agent. The problem is that the maturity of those agents is still very young, and they're not reliable. And so my question is, if you're not going to hire people into roles that can be done by AI, what happens when that AI F's up?
It possible? It is, yeah.
Or when it goes down, and now you don't have resources to handle that. And so that's my issue with that. That's that right. Principle.
Chatbots have been messing up. They keep sending you in loops, and when I need support, and AI just sending me to different departments, asking me same weird questions over and over again, I fed up.
Right.
And what is my next step to move for other options?
Exactly.
Right. I'm in the market again. I look for whether it's a cell phone or anything like. But so customer support is a key again, as you started with, like the governance still needs to happen.
Exactly.
It should keep an eye on what AI is doing, and we are not there yet. It may take some time there, but yeah, this Spotify's move is big. Maybe like it's gonna be like 1 or 2, maybe 5% of the jobs they can swap with AI. But like going at scale may take time.
Yeah. I mean, I read all the time. So, I mean, there are AI will program for you, will create applications for you. But so what does that mean? You're not going to hire developers in your organization, in an organization that's a digital organization that's based on application development, and so what happens again when that code doesn't work? Then what are you going to do? You're going to have to outsource the system to somebody else. And anyway, bad customer experience, losing subscribers, revenue goes down. I think the principle is a good one. What I would encourage that CEO of Spotify to do is to embark upon that journey slowly and make sure that he's covering his bases by having backup for the unreliability and the young maturity of the AI today.
Yeah, because it's gonna change the culture of the company, totally create that like chaotic situation internally. Yeah, it needs to happen slowly.
Exactly.
Yeah, to set a good example.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
and for the health of the business.
And for the health of the business, yeah, because like everyone has Spotify on their phones. You don't want to mess up their listening experience.
Right. That's right.
Okay. All right. So what is you want to talk about, like some signals about good customer experience, bad customer experience, like how to detect things before they happen. I mean, if detect signals are positive, let's not slip from those processes, keep doing the good job.
Right.
And if there are bad signals, like how to overcome on those quickly to convert those bad experiences into good ones. Again, coming back to those NPS and CSAT, like before we get to the scorecard, the proactive kind of detection system. Like any point of view there?
Yeah, I mean, that's where there are a lot of good tools out there today, AI based, that can monitor customer interactions at every touch point much more easily than humans can, and provide that sort of steady stream of information signal about the experience customers are having. And yes, when that signal indicates that the experience is good, that's great. We take a breath, we applaud ourselves, we have a beer, and then we continue to focus on those experiences and the monitoring of those experiences to ensure that is continues. When the signal we're getting indicates that there's friction and that the experience is less than optimal for customers, then I think it's incumbent on the organization to figure out quickly how to make the changes that are necessary. And again, I would suggest that you start with going to customers to understand what their view of the ideal experience is. This is sort of my mantra, is get the ideal experience from customers and then translate their ideal into what your infrastructure can provide, using that as your blueprint. It makes it a lot easier. There's no equivocation. Doesn't need to be a lot of discussion about how we do it. What we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation then becomes how, not what, but how, because we know what. Customers told us what we need to do. The conversation internally is how are we going to get that done?
So you're suggesting to run focus groups directly with customers?
Yes.
Yeah,
Always go
that's
to
a good one.
customers.
Yeah, direct feedback is always better.
Is always best.
Always.
And if you ask customers, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And then, I say this all the time. I do a lot of research for clients around customer experience. Customers when you ask, they're happy to tell you.
They like that.
They like it.
Yeah.
They like to be included.
Yep.
You need to action so that they understand, so that they feel like the input they gave you had value for you. So you need to close the loop. We call that, right?
Yeah. Have the closure.
And I will also caution that customers don't intentionally, but a lot of times they tell you the things that aren't true. That they'll tell you, if you do it this way, I will do more. It doesn't necessarily happen that way. So you still use their input and you test it. And so you get the input, you design the solution, you test the solution first to ensure that are you going to get the reaction from customers that they said they would have if you gave them their ideal. And then once you verify that, yes, they will, then you can roll that out. And if you find no, then maybe you need to go back and get a little bit more information from customers and to get more detail around how exactly do we do this in a way that's going to get the desired outcome for you and for us as a business.
Right. So having a direct feedback, how we do it in the digital experience domain, it's complicated because like visitor coming to your digital channels, engaging with that is a little complicated to understand. But again, as you mentioned, there are a lot of tools available these days, and AI is just like in the buzzword these days, but it's not a new thing. AI has been like since ages, right? It's been like few decades it's been around. And it's just that like we have consumer level use cases and tools available at scale, so we have better access to it. Otherwise, like predictive analysis, statistics, correlation, coefficient, and probability analysis, all these things were there like since I can think back up to the time. I wrote an article a couple of years ago about silence of the customer. We should be able to detect those signals also to reduce the churn, because 80% of the business is coming from 20% of existing customers.
We have a lot more indicators to enable that. Customers now expect that. I have a signature on my email. The last best experience a customer had somewhere becomes the expectation for the experience they want everywhere.
Interestingly, to say we don't know what we don't know. So how to know what we don't know?
Well, again, I think you start with outcomes. What is it I'm trying to achieve? 10 years ago, we used to work as part of digital transformation, and we used to talk to organizations about creating a data lake.
In the digital experience I was referring to, like, there were tools available to find patterns of customer journey from the first touch point to the conversion, and then bring down to the funnel for revenue stream, like what paths are high performing, low performing, and where the bounce is happening, and where, I mean, in a business world we call it customer churn, but in the digital analytics side we also call it the bounce rate. Right, the people come to the website and then there is no action after a certain point. Right. So we can analyze all that and find the good customer journeys and what content is performing better in those journeys, and then we can mimic similar experience on other journeys also by reusing that kind of content in other journey that are not performing better. And then eventually we try to create as many journeys as possible to convert path. Right, that's the goal. Right. So again, listening to customers is a super important point. Voice of customer is crucial. If anything is working for you, we need to understand, and data is there to support us. As long as data makes sense to you, you're good. If data doesn't make sense to you, then like you need to fix your data, because data is a fuel for all reports, for all decisions. If you're relying on data to give you pointers to make decisions, then you better fix your data stream. Right, you have to collect as much as data possible and have a good insightful system to give you good reports so that you can make efficient decisions. So so to your point, like listening to customers directly and implement that and close the loop after that, and test small based on the feedback and see if it works, and then scale and implement for everybody. That's really a very good point. And on top of that, I wrote an article a couple of years ago about silence of the customer. The silence, the quiet before the storm kind of use case, that like data does give you signals before the churn happens. Okay, so we should be able to detect those signals also to reduce the churn, because 80% of the business is coming from 20% of existing customers. For any business, it's true for most businesses. So in that case, we should listen to silence of customers too, but it doesn't come by itself. We should have an intelligent system in place to listen to that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And again, the beauty is that today there are a lot of tools that will make that easier.
Yeah.
That can monitor that in close to real time, many different sources. But you're right. And when I talk about what it is it's monitoring, it's all of the things that the digital analytics that we've been monitoring for 20 years now. Bounce rate, time on page, page turns, that sort of thing.
Repeat visitors, clicks.
Clicks, throughs, that sort of thing. I mean, these are all the sort of the leading indicators of the experience.
Yeah.
Going to customers to get their opinion via a focus group or a survey or a post-interaction survey is a lagging indicator. But so the ideal is to use both. And we now have tools that make the leading indicator monitoring and actioning a lot easier. And that's some of these AI agents that are available to us today. But it is important because we can see by close monitoring of a customer's path on our digital real estate, we can really surveil them. I hate to use that word. It has sort of a bad connotation. But in this case, I mean it in a positive way. we can monitor in the collective, right? In the aggregate, not just to any individual, but in the aggregate to understand where customers getting hung up, where's there, as we say, friction in their journey, and understand then when we begin to see that, what the ramifications are, and interdict, be proactive to ensure that we don't lose customers because they couldn't get what they wanted done as easily as they hoped to. We have a lot more indicators to enable us to see that, and so it's incumbent on an organization to begin to apply that. Customers now expect that. I have a signature on my email that I've actually picked up from somebody at IBM. I can't remember the woman's name, but she said this a long time ago, and it just resonates with me. And the saying is, the last best experience a customer had somewhere becomes the expectation for the experience they want everywhere. And that is true. Every time we go and have a brand new great experience, that becomes the expectation we have. So if I'm going to one website and they're offering me this great experience, when I go to the next website, I wonder why I can't have that same experience.
Yeah.
And so companies need to be aware of that. Back to your question at the very beginning of our conversation today about what are the blind spots that leaders have around customer experience, it's data and understanding the data that they need in order to be able to appropriately and accurately monitor customer experience, to be proactive, in order to ensure that that experience is always at the best it can possibly be.
Just last night, I posted on LinkedIn. I was working on some research, and a Gartner report came up, and it does say 76% of the CMOs they surveyed, they're not very confident on the outcome of their marketing and digital investments. So they're not confident. They're not saying they are not getting outcome. They are saying they're not confident. Means there is some gap between the visibility and the actual outcome. So there is not enough data there to tell them to increase their confidence level on the outcome they are really getting from their investments. So it's an interesting read to have. As you mentioned, the blind spot has data there as well. Just having 5 metrics on QBRs or going all high up in green doesn't really mean business is getting healthier. There are several ways to make data green look green, but what is that confidence level? I think that's where the dimension gets added. Interestingly, that okay, all green, business is doing good. How confident are you? This is really good. And that raises the question mark, and I'm really interested to deep dive into that report even further.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting, and I do a lot of work with clients on evaluating their data as clients are looking at, as businesses are looking at introducing AI agents. We always have to have the conversation of understanding what data they have available to them today, what's accessible. I mean, the data is there. The question is, what's accessible? And it's a great exercise because oftentimes we find that the data that they want in order to bring on the agent that they want is not currently accessible to them because it's housed in different systems that don't speak to each other, because up until today, they didn't need to speak to each other. And now all of a sudden they do. And so the exercise of investigating what are the use cases for AI in my organization should always be accompanied by what's the accessibility of my data, because those are that's the work that needs to get done first, is to is to make that data more accessible so that you can bring on the AI, so the AI has that data to leverage in order to do the tasks that you want the AI to do or to produce the information that you want. I would say to CEOs, if they're not confident in their data, then they need to look at the accessibility of the data in their organizations and make sure that the data that they need in order to feel better about their organizations is there and accessible.
Yeah. Interestingly to say, we don't know what we don't know, right? So how to know what we don't know?
Well, again, I think you start with outcomes.
Yes.
What is it I'm trying to achieve? And then kind of work backwards from, okay, so this is what I want. Now, how am I going to get that? Well, and as you start to work back, one pathway, particularly when we talk about AI, is going to lead you to what data do I need in order to enable this AI agent?
Very interesting point, Michael. Very interesting. We don't have to boil the ocean, really. So,
no.
Yeah. So enough data. There is never enough data. So data is enough, but makes good outcomes, right? So that's enough data. So as long as there is real outcome, there is real impact on the customer's business, customer success. Yeah. So that's.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we used to work as part of digital transformation, and we used to talk to organizations about creating a data lake. Yeah. And that was usually about the time that effort sort of just nosedived because it seemed huge. I got to create this data lake, and it was a big undertaking.
They still exist.
I know they still exist. And I don't think it's a bad notion. I just think it was too big an ask. It was a boil the ocean kind of effort. Whereas I think today we understand that you start with individual outcomes or a set of outcomes, work backwards to how to achieve those outcomes, look at the data that's part of achieving that outcome, and work on those data first. And so it's an iteration. It's a series of steps. And that's sort of the method that I subscribe to that seems to be the most successful for organizations, because then that iterative effort can be paced based on the comfort level of the organization and the investment and needing to see a return on investment. I have a client today, as an example, that I'm working with who is very cautious about the return on investment on bringing on AI. And so we're starting with very simple introductions of AI agents based on understanding what data they have available to them today. And while I've charted or begun to chart a plan for them, a roadmap, we've agreed that this is going to be a 2-year effort because that's their comfort level, but at least they can move forward.
Yeah.
And as they get more comfortable, my guess is, between you and me and the audience, that as this organization gets more comfortable, that 2-year roadmap will compress because they'll see the success and they'll want more. And so they'll accelerate their own effort. But for now, we can do a 2-year plan. It doesn't have to be a sprint. It can be a marathon. Should all be based on outcomes that customers want, and then work backwards from there. The customer needs, that's where you prioritize, look at the outcomes, and then that'll take you back to the data to understand, do I have the data that I need in order to deliver the outcome via an agent?
Who would you look for as a CEO of a company?
Some of those others focus on customer collaboration, administrative competence, help to engender that. But ultimately, I mean, if I had to pick one of those, it's definitely the ability to articulate a vision and rally that resonates with people and can rally people.
Every leadership is not involved to that level. All people, like, some have different preferences, some have different engagements, priorities. It needs to be prioritized. How to get their buy-in if they're not enough available?
Create a situation in a container, limited, but impactful. I mean, that's sort of the leading practice in terms of the formula of any of these test and learn scenarios. It should always be impactful, that are small, containable, but also have an impact so that you can demonstrate there was an impact, a significance to the impact based on the change that we attempted.
Most companies are making their own models and training their systems to implement their processes using the AI technology. In this situation, you're talking a lot about agentic AI. How can companies leverage that lot of data they have to even create a 360-degree preview of their all the information that is stored, aligned to their processes, map to the outcome, and then execute that usage of that data, which is there. Of course, you mentioned about outcome driven alignment, right? So start with the results and then see like, okay, what to do with all this and how much data is required on that. But with respect to agentic AI, which is being in a lot of discussions lately, keeping agentic AI in the context, how can we leverage all that data and still do the same thing faster and more efficiently?
Well, I think it's, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it's based on the outcomes that you're interested in.
That's the key.
It is the key.
It
For
is.
me anyway. It's a place, it's a logical, methodical way to start.
And start small.
Yeah, look at the outcomes. And how do you decide which outcomes to focus on?
Yeah.
Again, I would say go to
Run
your
a pilot.
customers, understand where their most critical need is for you to improve the experience, to make it easier for them to do business with you, whatever the customer needs, that's where you prioritize, look at the outcomes, and then that'll take you back to the data to understand, do I have the data that I need in order to deliver the outcome via an agent? And what do I need to do in order to, if not, what do I need to do in order to give that agent the data it needs?
Yeah. So whatever customer churn happened over the last many years of the time, and analyze then all the information from there, detect those signals that led to their churn, and then improve on the futuristic processes. And what's again like those customer journeys I mentioned about what is working fine, what is not working, and then try to mimic the good experiences into the bad experience journeys to increase the success.
Right. And there are situations, I mean, I've got a client right now who doesn't have that data because they didn't keep it. I mean, they had it, but they didn't keep it. So they can't go to the information about customer journeys that ultimately, for customers who ultimately churned. So flip it. What we're working on now is we're looking at customers who stay and understanding the data that is indicative, that correlates strongly to the value the customers place on this business and the experiences they're having with this business. And so when we understand what makes a great journey for a customer so that we stay, we can then begin to make some assumptions about what kind of an experience or what situations occur for a customer who churns. And we can test those with customers. We can model that the good experience with new customers to understand, does this work for all customers? And then use that. And again, this is where AI can be helpful to look at, if you take one journey that's a superlative journey based on the customer feedback and the performance of a customer group who have this similar journey, and you model that and overlay that on other journeys as a pilot, as a beta, to understand, will this same formula work for these other journeys in terms of achieving those outcomes, those superlative outcomes on the experience plane for customers.
Your example reminds me a story from Second World War, I guess. The fighter aircraft, the aircraft that are returning from the battlefield were having bullet marks on it, and their research team, I think it's I don't remember like which country the planes belong to, but the story is very good to learn a lesson from. That the research team started studying about where the aircraft is weak, where it getting bullets hit and the bullet marks getting through the plane. Okay, and one person actually then they realized like, okay, these are not the weak points.
Right.
The weak
they
points
made it back.
are they made it back.
Right.
The weak points are we don't know where the bullets are going, so the planes are not returning. So again, are we looking at the right data?
Right.
Or we are just looking at what is visible to us, right? So yeah, to your point.
That is one way. And again, it's, part of this, what we're talking about here is adopting a culture that is pervasively testing and learning. That's the way that you continue to evolve as an organization, and you continue to create great experiences for customers. And it's, a leading practice in terms of growing your business and sustaining your business. And so, you sometimes use the absence of data to test and learn based on the data you do have to extrapolate and then test those to quantify. And now you have the data.
Now you have the data. That's perfectly fine. Any change with AI or like a culture shift we want to implement, it doesn't happen without leadership's buy-in. I mean, it has to be supported and involved from top to bottom. Have you ever seen or faced challenges to have, as you also give example, like just telling employees that we are customer focused now and expect they will be more focused on customer experience? No, it doesn't happen that way. Leadership has to take charge, get involved, and fix everything. Not fix themselves, but at least facilitate fixing everything. Every leadership is not involved to that level. All people, like some have different preferences, some have different engagements, priorities. It needs to be prioritized. How to get their buy-in if they're not enough available?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's
by showing value.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's show the value. I mean, I think that's probably as close to the silver bullet solution as
show other success stories, good examples from markets, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then test. Create a situation in a container, limited but impactful. I mean, that's sort of the leading practice in terms of the formula of any of these test and learn scenarios. It should always be impactful. I used to use the example, if I want to make an impact in the decor of an organization, of the building, I'm not going to paint the closet to show you what a beautiful color change, what happens when to the beauty of the organization when I change the closet, because that's not an impactful place. I need to, maybe I'll do it in the bathroom where it's a little bit more discreet, but it's still impactful. People will see it. So I say, create your test cases that are small, containable, but also have an impact so that you can demonstrate there was an impact, a significance to the impact based on the change that we attempted or that failed. Because again, in a test and learn environment, there really are no failures. There's only learning. Either something worked, and so the learning is we should do this.
That's right.
Or it didn't work, and the learning is we should not do this.
We should not do that. Get better at it. Yeah.
I mean, show the value is definitely what all leaders need, and I think that's in general what motivates them to change their thinking.
Yeah.
Make sure that, and you can do that both, sort of secondarily with research of use cases from other organizations who have attempted to sort of set the table and get their acquiescence or their agreement to a test case. Find a containable, impactful test use case.
Exactly.
Conduct your test. demonstrate the results, and that's generally an effective way. And it may take several of those.
Yes.
So you'd either do them concurrently or one at a time. Again, there's no right cadence. The cadence is based on the individual and the personalities and the needs and the priorities of the business. The important thing, to your point, is in the act fast is, I would just say act.
Act. Exactly. And I would pick like the most impactful use case, run at a smaller scale, show small wins, show the result, and get them involved even more, and then ask for more.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
So coming back to the topic where we started from, like having leadership involved in the transformation, bringing new changes, and doing the culture shift. Those are big things, and that happens every few months in most organizations, especially large ones. And implementing change is even tougher in those large organizations. Big ships are difficult to turn. So in such situations, and you also mentioned about a narrative coming from the top saying, oh, we are customer focused now, just give our customers good experience and employees have to figure it out. It doesn't work like that, right? Leadership has to take the charge, be part of the change, get involved, and make it successful. So that accountability is something not everyone provides. They don't really take on the steering wheel on this change. So what do you think on this one? Like how to get leadership even closer to this change, even if they are busy, but they should feel that change as necessary. How to get them involved if it is tough in some teams? How to make it easy?
Yeah, I think the common denominator there is to help them understand the value
Absolutely.
of the changes. The how to do that depends on the leader and what resonates with them. But in general, the avenues are to use case studies from other organizations who have adopted the behaviors, the culture, the changes, the transformations that one is proposing for their own for this organization, and show the results where that's possible. The other is to design a test case, a use case that is small enough to be done quickly, and has a significant impact on the organization, so that the change is not only shown, but the significance of the change is also part of that value equation.
Great.
The example the illustration I use is if I want to show you the value of painting the building, and I need to convince you that the color choice is the right color choice, if I'm not going to paint a closet to show you how well the new color works, because nobody really pays attention to the closet. I have to find another room where minimum amount of people, or in a more private situation, people are less public, the change happens, but it's significant, where it has more visibility. So the analogy is supposed to be pointing out, whether it works or not, is that find those use cases where you can do a fairly quick test case where the result has significance to the organization.
Absolutely.
Execute that quickly, show the result. And generally, that's a good method for getting leadership to pay attention and to understand the value that the proposed change brings and why they should focus. The last thing I'll add is what I found is very significant is once the leadership begins to sort of come around to the way of thinking and is open to making the change and supporting the change, don't be afraid to be prescriptive about the specific help you need from that leadership.
And that's what actually they like to.
Yeah.
It makes them make decisions easy.
And my advice is to make that an easy ask for them.
True.
So as an example, when I was working at one company, and the focus of the company from a customer experience perspective was all about NPS, what we found was when further research with customers, in fact, customers were very vocal about it, was outside of NPS, they loved our products, but we were really difficult to do business with. So I wanted there to be more, I felt based on this feedback, like the really right direction for the organization to focus was on ease of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the CEO to make my case, the CEO was open and receptive based on the data, but wanted to know what he could do. And my ask of him was very simple. Whenever one of your subordinates comes to you with a proposal for work that they want or in discussion of initiatives that their team is working on, I just need you to ask one question. What's the impact on the effort of the customer?
Absolutely.
That's all you have to do.
Love that.
Because that demonstrates it's a priority of the CEO, and then that will cascade down into the organization. Everybody will understand that's a priority I need to think about because I'm going to be asked about it.
Exactly.
So make the ask of the CEO or the leadership simple and easy so that they can execute it easily, and then they will, and you'll get that support that you need.
Have an execution plan in place for them, make it part of their KRAs, and help them look good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and that's when it's going to make it easy for them to be involved as well, and they're better accessible to as well to make those changes possible at a corporate level.
Right.
I mean, just break and conquer small wins, right? Yeah, I would do the same. I'll pick up the most impactful use case and break it down to the bare minimum possible use case to show a small win.
Exactly.
And then go with the proposal. Okay, hey, this is the pilot we ran and it shows improvement. We're going to do that at scale. And it's going to need all that help and information and support from you. And it will influence the company's productivity by this much. And yes or no.
and I would just add, don't be surprised if you have to show a number of use cases. One successful trial can lead to acquiescence to 2 or 3 more trials. And then because the leadership may need to see that it's actually repeatable in different scenarios within the organization. And that's fair. So have those in mind. And again, baby steps, iterative.
Yeah, sure. I know our audience have leaders and job seekers. I want to talk a little bit about the job seekers right now. That, like, what do you think is the most demanding skills where job seekers can find opportunity? In other words, if you want to hire an expert in today's industry, who would you look for as a CEO of a company?
As a CEO, interesting. So I would look for focus on customer, collaborative, administratively competent, which brings me to my last sort of requirement, which is the ability to articulate a vision in a way that rallies people.
Yeah, storytelling, that's tough to find skill. Yeah, I agree.
I think some of those others, focus on customer, collaboration, administrative competence, help to engender that. But ultimately, I mean, if I had to pick one of those, it's definitely the ability to articulate a vision and rally that resonates with people and can rally people. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Nav. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
It was fun talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I truly appreciate your time and attention. If something in this episode sparked a new idea, shifted your thinking, or even just made you nod along, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are just getting started. We might have made mistakes. I promise we will improve. In every episode, I'm going to dive deeper into such conversations that impact us. And hey, if you're vibing with what we are building here, share it with someone you trust. That's how good ideas spread. Until next time, think holistic, think economics, think fast, and keep leading forward.